Is that technology that Sunfire still owns, or is that, and will they produce it if they do?
They won't produce it. It's,
Okay,
yeah,
so then
they just won't.
we're back to the previous 8-channel Carver Corporation little amp that's gonna come out, and we will include that. So
Yeah, I mean,
It's the first product from Carver.
I don't want to make it if it's not really cool.
how much more wife-friendly can you get than that?
That's right. That's right. That's
You
what I
got the
think.
ribbons, you got
Do you
the
agree? Would
subwoofers,
you
you got
agree?
the amplifier.
That
Is that
amp,
small?
Let Sunfire.
Women in the world get together.
Does it bother me?
What happened to the man factor? We need these big speakers.
Yeah, that's right. We need big speakers. I think we'll compromise with big speakers.
We all know why you need the big speakers. We don't wanna talk about that.
Now that
Not all.
boy, they can all come together.
It's just not a
We're red Ferraris.
Besides that fridge. Hey, how do you know I had a Ferrari? All right, everybody, settle down. You will please. This one is more of a joke than a question. When you let the magic smoke out of an amp, how come you can't put it back? All right, now, you don't have to answer that.
Let me think.
because Rita has all the spare smoke to put back in.
Call Rita.
Okay, if a mirror reverses right and left, of course it should be able to reverse up and down, but it doesn't. So what does that have to do with magic smoke?
Sometimes things don't.
I don't know. I don't know why you can't.
You let the genie out, he doesn't want to go back.
Why you can't put the magic?
You can only use it once. We were hoping you could figure it out.
Catastrophic
Anybody have any
electronic
ideas about
failure.
magic smoke?
I've never been able to put the magic smoke back in.
No.
Nobody has enough big enough vacuum cleaner to get it in.
Yeah, right.
All right, serious
Maybe it
question
has
now.
something to do with the compression.
Serious question now.
This is about tubes too. What is your take on the quality differences between new old stock tubes and stuff currently made?
I have a lot to say about that. Until very recently, old stock tubes were definitely better. They were superior. And I've been buying them up just to check up on that. And I found that tubes that were made 50 years ago are still great, especially output tubes, unless they've been harmed or destroyed by over-thermalating them or something. But vacuum tubes have a figure of merit, and it's called gain, how hard they can pull down, the voltage they can pull down, how close they can get to ground, things like that, that make them work very, very well, as well as having longevity. And the NOS tubes are just fabulous. They really are great. They pull down well. They've been around for 50 years anyway, before I bought them. And whenever I would buy a new tube, it was horrible by comparison. It couldn't pull down. The filament would, after about 7 months, the tube would start to become weak. And after a year, it was history. And this was pretty consistent story. So I was happy to have a lot of NOS tubes that I got during my Carver days, over 20 years ago. So, but time went on, and very recently I've been purchasing some tubes from Shiguang, and they're great. They're as good as tubes ever were 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. And I've even seen shots of the inside of the factory. The factory shots, you see people running around with white lab coats on, and beautiful, beautiful, clean places where the tubes are made. Everything's clean. Just like looking at a picture from New Jersey in the RCA days of 40, 50, 60 years ago.
You've actually got photos from the inside.
From the inside?
Nobody I know has that.
They're online.
There's some on the net.
You can find them.
Yeah, they're online.
I love that.
That's where I saw them. There were several great videos made of how tubes were made in England, you know, and Mullard. And I don't think Hitler allowed anybody to take pictures of his telefunken factory, but you can see the Mullard ones being made, and it's fascinating to watch. The details that goes into those tubes is amazing. But then I got some tubes from Russia about 2 years ago, and they weren't very good. They really weren't good. When I started building my preamps, I needed some good front end tubes, and I ended up buying them from this kid who lived in Russia, who would go to the airplane graveyards, the military airplane graveyard. He'd take the tubes out of those airplanes. They were all tubes back then. They probably still are, and they were very good, but they were military ones. Then when the Iron Curtain fell, they were open for business, joined the free enterprise system, made horrible tubes. They just didn't make very good ones at all. But the military ones were great, I guess because the government subsidized the production. So then, but very recently that's changed. An American guy by the name of Mike Matthews purchased the Mullard name and purchased the Tungsol name and a couple others. Oh, Gold Lion. He purchased the Gold Lion name. And he went to Russia and he made a deal, cut a deal with those tube companies. He says, okay, I want you to make tubes for me and I'll sell them in the United States and in Europe. So they did, and the tubes weren't very good. But this was a few years ago. They've worked very hard, especially Mike Matthews. He must have busted his chops, but he has wanted to make a great tube for as long as I can remember. He was around during the phase linear days. He made this little pedal called Electro Harmonix. It was cute, but he finally got around to getting the Russians to make good tubes, and they're great. I've had some Gold Lions, they're as good as anything I've ever seen, and he just recently came out with some Tungsol KT120s. They're as great as anything I've ever seen. They perform well. So far, they're reliable. I haven't had any of them flame out. I haven't had a single one catastrophically destroy itself. What I don't know is how long they'll last. You know, I have to wait 20 years to find out or longer. But so far, I have to say they're really very, very, very good.
So along that line, since they're new, how expensive are they, relatively
They're
speaking?
cheap, yeah. They're
Not
not very
bad.
expensive at all. Let me put it in perspective. A Tungsol 6550 in 1960, about 1963, so that's almost 50 years ago or more anyway, was $11. Today, and inflation is by a factor of 10. Today that tube should be $110, but it's not. It's $35 to $45. So the price of the tubes has dropped.
And the new old stock ones are going for what, $100 a tube on the average?
Yeah. More than that.
More than that.
Yeah, for
And,
really
and,
good.
and it's really unnecessary.
It's unnecessary, yeah. So right now, the NOS tubes are great. Their price is high because they're collector's items and people want them and love them for emotional reasons. For scientific reasons, though, as far as I can tell, the new Tungsols and the Gold Lions and the Shogun ones, especially the ones that you got. And where's Brian? Brian, are you here?
I think he went back to his cabin to start packing,
Oh,
but
yeah.
he actually bought the high-end treasure Shogans. And he and Jesse both love them.
Yeah.
I've heard they're
You heard them?
great, yes.
I could not find a bad review on the internet with them.
No. There were numerous very highly regarded reviews, but I never saw anything negative anywhere about them either.
And it's an interesting history. The Shogun Company used to be a very tiny, small, high-end audio company that made tubes 30 years ago. And they just about went out of business, and so they sold out to a huge tube company. What's the name of it?
I don't
You
know.
don't know?
No, I don't.
Anyway, some huge giant, and though this huge giant company knew how to build tubes, I mean, they were good at it. They had scientists, they had good quality control, they did it right. And they took that high-end audio tube and made it reliable and made it work, and they've been successful. That's what he's got. And they even upgraded it to
The new treasure ones, yeah. I think those are